host, Joni Lane. We're here every Monday at 3 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. And I'd like to thank LCM TV for having us here. And Sam Houston for letting us hear that beautiful music that he's written, and he is letting me play his music on the show. I had to ask his permission, and he was happy to give it, but I love the music and I love sharing it with you. If you're interested in purchasing the music for yourself, because it is very relaxing and great meditation music, please visit his website at samhouston.com, EUSTON, and check out his CDs and how you can purchase them. I also have them available for sale at my nonprofit in Kelseyville. Our nonprofit is called A Positive Light, and we are a meditation center. We hold meditation classes and personal growth classes, and we have visiting teachers that teach various things, all in positive messages and related to spiritual growth and personal growth. We are a nonprofit, so we're donation-based. There are specific fees for some of our classes to kind of make up for some of the costs that are incurred in having those classes. But we keep our prices low, $10 a class or maybe $25, but most of the time it's on a donation base. So Monday night meditations at 7 o'clock every Monday evening. At 7 o'clock we hold Monday meditations. There's no cost. It's donation based. And what we do there is we hold meditations based on mindfulness and loving kindness and insight meditations. There's also walking meditation and eating meditation and all kinds of meditations. So I know a lot of people, when I tell them what I do, their immediate response is, well, I really need to meditate more. And my immediate response to them is, okay, I'll see you Monday night. So if you can come out Monday night at 7 o'clock, great. We're located in Kelseyville, California. And you can find our information on my website, which is apositivelight.com. And you can email me or phone me. But the calendar is posted on our website. Any upcoming classes are going to be posted on the website as well. Tomorrow is the second Tuesday of the month, and on the second Tuesday of the month we hold 12 in Zen. And 12 in Zen is a no-cost, donation-based hour starting at 7 o'clock. And that is based on the book by Bill Crumbeen, 12 in Zen. And what we do is we meditate on one of the 12 steps in order. Every month we move on to the next step. And tomorrow night we're going to be starting again on step 1. And when we do this, we pair it with a Buddhist koan. And a Buddhist koan is a story or parable, and we relate that to the step. So as we meditate on it, various things happen. The step might open up some new information to us. We might see it in a different light. We might come up with ideas that never occurred to us before. And we often share those with each other, and in sharing those is where we really learn a lot from each other. And even in speaking about what we've come up with, we expand on it and really deepen our relationship with our steps. So I want to stress too that you don't need to be in a step program to enjoy this and get a lot out of it for your own personal growth. The 12 steps was based in traditional AA, but we have Zen practitioner steps and we have societal normal steps. And I think everyone can benefit from them because it's a deep look inside of yourself and how you can grow and become a better person and be happier with yourself and who you are and deal well with others. So it's a very growth-oriented class. It's a lot of fun. We laugh a lot. We enjoy it. So I encourage you to come on the second Tuesday of every month at 7 o'clock for one of our step meetings. You don't need to start at step 1. Every single step is important. I'm also a life and spiritual coach, and I'm happy to help people who are feeling stuck or lost or need a different view on what might be going on with them. Sometimes a perfect stranger can look at something and help you see something that you may not see, because I'm not emotionally involved with what's going on with your life. I do care about you, and I do become very empathetic, which is something I need to work on. But because I'm empathetic and I really care, I really do try to help people sort things out and kind of see where they may or may not want to move. Maybe there's things they need to let go of, or maybe there's things they need to step into. So please contact me if you have any questions about where you're at right now. Maybe you need a little guidance in that area. I'm also a Reiki master teacher, and Reiki is Japanese energy work. Reiki is universal energy, and we can move the energy. The energy can be very healing. I do teach students, first degree, second degree, third degree, which is master, and also teacher. So if you're interested in learning Reiki, let me know, and I'll be happy to set up a class with you. I do set them up occasionally on the website, and you may want to join one of the classes, so you can check the website as well. The last Friday of every month, I hold a Reiki healing circle where I invite people to come and do a little gentle yoga and a little Qigong, and then they lie down while I give a guided meditation and individual Reiki. It's very healing, a wonderful class. It fills up quickly, so if you're interested in it, contact me and I will put your name on the list to save your spot. I did mention Qigong. I am a healing movement Qigong teacher, as taught by Master Ming Tong Gu. And healing Qigong is specifically used to move energy through your body to heal at a cellular level. It's a very fun day-long class, and I do have a $25 charge for that. I'll be setting something up in July, so check the calendar. And again, feel free to contact me if you're interested in joining the class. Today in Lake County, which is where this is, Lake County, California, we are having our first heat wave, and we don't have air conditioning. So I'm getting a little warm. I may take off my shawl and show off my muscles in a minute. We've been working on our center. We have 4 acres, and we've been moving dirt around and putting in walkways. So we've been really working hard, and today's a hot day and I'm not going to work in the heat, but I just want to warn you, I may take off my shawl in a minute. The last few weeks I've been talking about the Four Noble Truths. Suffering, the cause of suffering, the fact that suffering can be ceased. And once we decide that we want to let go of some of our behaviors that are causing suffering, we can decide as well to walk in a life path practicing that, which is the fourth noble truth. The walking of the Dharma, walking up the path or the way. And I'm finding that it's not really as simple as it sounds. I realize that because I've been practicing it for more than 25 years. But I'm trying to help people find a way that works for them. So what I've been doing is trying various different modes of teaching. Now, I tap into some of what Jack Kornfield's taught me, who was my teacher at Spirit Rock, and it continues to be my teacher when I show up there for those classes. I've been trying to share some of the things that Thich Nhat Hanh has given us over the years, as well as Pema Chodron. They are all Buddhist practitioners. Some studied in Burma, some studied specifically the Zen. And I don't think there's any right or wrong way. I think there's many different ways, because we're all different people. And one way might strike you and have an aha moment when another way really doesn't make sense. So last week I introduced excuse me, the 3 difficult practices. And those are part of the Buddhist teachings. And I think it's an easier way to break it down. I left myself some notes here because I do want to stay on a specific task and not wander off into something that I feel is relevant. I'm really going to try to stick to my notes today because I want you to understand, or at least pick up part of some sentence that might resonate with you, that helps you say, oh, I see what I should be doing, or maybe I can try that. So yes, it's much too warm in here. I'm taking this off. And yes, I do have muscles from all that work. Practicing the 3 difficult practices, as they say in Buddhism, do your best to practice them because it's not easy and it's not something that you can just do. It's a practice. And again, the more you practice something, the easier it gets. And in practicing them, you're not strengthening the habits that are causing you grief and anxiety and stress. So we all have habits that we go to, all different learned behavior that we fall into. And often it causes us grief and stress. And we really dig our heels in about it because it's what we know. It's a pattern of behavior that we go to because it's what we've always gone to. It's what we're comfortable with. But that doesn't mean it's the best behavior. So in looking at that, looking at the first difficult practice, which is noticing your behavior, acknowledging it without judgment and without opinion, just looking at it. It's hard to do because in Western culture we are taught to judge things. We are taught to pick things apart or see what's wrong with something. If our behavior is causing unhappiness, we need to look at it. It's really easy for us to blame other people. It's really easy for us to blame a situation or someone is acting in a way we don't like. And that happens. People act in a way we don't like. But what we can do about that is look at the way we react to that. So why do we fall into our behaviors and stay there, even if they're not healthy? Why do you do this? I think it's because we become so used to automatically responding to something without thinking about it that it becomes a known territory. It's very comfortable. We can rely on it. And even if it's not the best response, we still rely on it because we know it's there. We're used to it. We know how to say the same thing in the same situation. It's what I always say. That's how I always act. But that doesn't mean it's the best way for you. Is it the healthiest way? These are questions to ask yourself when you acknowledge your behavior. It's not judging. It's not beating yourself up. It's simply asking and acknowledging. I think you have a really hard time, or we all have a really hard time stepping into unknown territory. Unless we intentionally make a point to change our behavior. Then we're intentionally stepping into territory that's unknown, but we're doing it consciously. We're being mindful of stepping into a different place. We're being mindful of trying something on to see how it feels. And then you can take any situation throughout the day and consciously choose to react differently. We automatically have a response, but it's really a good practice sometimes to pull back and before we say anything, think about it and then try something new. Maybe just being quiet and smiling and allowing yourself to process it. Because sometimes we don't have another way to react. We don't know another thing to say. We don't know some other place to go to. So often when that happens, we might want to pull back and think, I know what I really want to say right now, but I'm not going to say it. I'm going to wait and see if I could step back from this, and perhaps something will come to me in a few minutes. And if it does, then you can think about it. You don't have to say it, you don't have to go back and react, but you can look at the situation. Okay, normally I would have reacted in this way, but since I didn't, I'm thinking I could have taken a more loving approach and said, wow, this person is really upset or stressed about something. Rather than bark back at them, maybe I can just allow them to have a difficult day and not involve myself in it, not add to it, not add to the stress. Sometimes when people are having a hard time and they're not acting very nice to us, it triggers something in us where we get very defensive, and we tend to want an explanation for their behavior and a justification for the way we behave. And we all want to be forgiven for our mistakes, and we all say things we regret. We all feel there's times when we want to go back and have a redo and do it over again, say it differently. I think you can do that by saying, you know what? I shouldn't have said what I said. I apologize. That was wrong. What I'm trying to tell you is, and then explain. Explain your feelings, explain your point, calmly and rationally and with a loving heart. It takes effort. And in Western culture, we're very defensive and we don't always speak from our heart. I think people who are in a profession such as teaching or counseling or dealing with specific personality types are used to being separate from their emotions. They're used to separating themselves from their immediate response because they're consciously thinking about how they want to respond to people. And I don't think it should be limited to just professionals. I think that in this world, we need to be more empathetic toward the other person that we're dealing with. Even if it's a complete stranger, maybe especially if it's a complete stranger. Just take the time to understand that they're having a difficult day. Maybe they had a difficult life. We don't know. But you can kind of not involve yourself in it. Maybe send a little blessing in your thought and think, I hope your day gets better. But you don't need to involve yourself in it and defend yourself, because it only adds to the negative energy and it only adds to the stress and the tension. And when you decide to involve yourself in someone else's bad day by defending yourself, you're actually adding to the tension. You're taking it on. You're deciding to step into it. You're deciding to take that on. And it's not going to make you very happy. It's not going to make them very happy either. So these are just some points to bring up. I know that a lot of times people will come and they'll listen, like you're listening to me today, and I'm hoping that you're listening to me today because you're looking for something new. You're looking for a different way to react. You're looking for a different behavior pattern to develop, maybe. I know a lot of people ask me, what else should I do? I don't know what my options are. And really the only suggestion I have is to not respond right away. To close your mouth, take a breath, and step away from it. And look into your heart and see if you can forgive people's behavior. See if you can forgive yourself for your knee-jerk reaction that you might have. And either respond in a loving way or don't respond and process it. It's not an easy thing to do, but the first difficult practice is fairly easy because it's simply recognizing your behavior. And a lot of times we're recognizing really good behavior. We're thinking, wow, I really like the way I'm acting right now, or I think that was an appropriate response. You know, it's It's not a matter of judging, it's a matter of just watching, observing, seeing the big picture. Now there's a big difference between tearing yourself apart and judging yourself and judging others and just observing your behavior or your reactions to other people's behavior. In observing and acknowledging, you can realize when you're getting hooked into your old patterns of behavior. We have buttons that people say, oh, you've been pushing my buttons and I'm going to react this way because you pushed my button. Well, we all have those buttons and reactions, but we can change those. We can rewire our circuit board and have different buttons. We can consciously acknowledge the buttons that we have, acknowledge our triggers, and consciously make a change in that. Maybe go in a different direction than we really comfortably want to. When you start acknowledging your typical behavior, your habitual behavior patterns, you may begin to notice that some of them are very good responses and make you feel comfortable in your body and in your heart, and others are not so comfortable. When they're not feeling comfortable, or when you feel the tension build, when you feel the situation get a little thicker and the tension get a little thicker, it's a really good indication that perhaps there's a different way to react. If that's the case, you've learned a lot. That's a really big step. So, also I want to explain that there's no suffering in the hooking itself, the being hooked by your behavior. It's falling into the patterns of behavior that are not healthy and that are not making you happy and that are causing more stress. When I'm talking about being hooked, I'm talking about sometimes it's almost impossible to not react the way we always do. I find myself doing it a lot. There's certain things that trigger some responses in me, and I'm like, why do I continue to do that? Why do I continue to act that way? It's not healthy. Doesn't make me feel good. I've actually made the situation worse. Now the tension is higher. But it's a good question. Why do I do that? And in acknowledging it, I've opened a door. Now that I've acknowledged it, now I can make a different choice the next time something comes up. So the first difficult practice is acknowledging and noticing how we behave, what buttons are being pushed, why we're reacting the way we're acting. The second difficult practice is doing something different, and that's probably the most difficult practice. This is why they say, do your best to practice the 3 difficult practices, because it is not easy to do something different. When you're caught up in the moment, when you're caught up in an emotion or in a discussion, and it's an emotionally charged discussion, it's too easy to just fall into old behavior and get sucked down that river of constant behavior patterns. So acknowledging it is a really big first step, because then you don't necessarily have to step into that behavior. Then you can step back and decide how you want to act. It also goes against our comfort. We comfortably react the way we do. We're used to it. It's our go-to place. It's how we always act. We fall into it automatically without even noticing it. And then we're like, oh yeah, well, I wasn't going to really act that way today. Shoot. Well, okay, now I'm going to make it a point not to do that again. It's a beginning, and it's difficult to do. It's difficult to change our automatic, habitual patterns of behavior. But making an effort is a big step. Make an honest effort to think, okay, next time I'm not going to do that. Maybe next time I'm going to react this way. Maybe next time I won't say a word. That's very difficult for me. I always want to jump in and start saying things. So, what also happens in making a choice to do something different, we step into a conscious decision to act a different way. And in doing that, we are walking into a very uncomfortable place because we're not used to it there. This is unknown territory. We have no ground beneath our feet. We are not used to this behavior. It feels really uncomfortable. But it doesn't feel bad. It just feels uncomfortable. Some of our behavior that makes us feel bad about who we are, we continue to do it because it's comfortable. When we think about that, that's kind of sad, that we continue to make ourselves uncomfortable just because we're used to it. There's nothing wrong with trying on new behavior and feeling a little discomfort, and then taking a couple of breaths and ask yourself, why does it feel uncomfortable? Is it just because I'm not used to it? Am I not being authentically who I am? And that's another question I get asked quite a bit. If I act differently than I normally would, am I then not being authentic? And that's a very good question. You need to be yourself. You need to be the best you can be. If you're pretending to be somebody else, then no, you're not being authentic. But if you truly look into your heart about how you really want to act, and what feels comfortable in your body and in your spirit, then you are being your authentic self. You're just trying a new approach. And trying a new approach is a huge step into growth. Because the more often you go there, the more comfortable it becomes. And before you know it, the old patterns of behavior start drifting away and dissipating. They don't come up so often. Because now you're finding a new way to act. And a new way that brings happiness instead of stress. So practicing, your second difficult practice, is doing something different, but finding it in your heart and what feels right in your spirit. It's a very important point that I want you to really understand. I don't want you to be anybody but you. And I don't want you to be anything but happy. But if you're not happy with the way you're acting, then maybe you need to look inside and see what your heart is really telling you to do. And once you do that, even though it might be a little uncomfortable at first, you'll start seeing happier results. You'll start seeing people respond in a more positive way. And that will make you feel better. It reduces stress. You're not walking into a tense situation and creating more tension. Sometimes comedians will make jokes about things just to lighten the load a little bit. And it's not a bad approach, because sometimes we take things a little too seriously. Sometimes, not always. We're going to take a break right now and have a short commercial for a couple of minutes, and then we'll be back, and I will continue to give suggestions on some of the things we can do to change some of our habitual patterns that are causing us stress and unhappiness. So listen to the commercial and come back. Thank you.
You're invited to participate in a true multimedia experience coming to a home near you. LCM TV is bringing Lake County into the new millennium with news, live broadcast, information, music, talk shows, and local programming, all streaming in high definition online and soon to be on your Roku box. Join us at lcm-tv.com or be a part of our studio audience. You can also watch the shows at lakecomagazine.com as we provide programming to inform, enlighten, and maybe even enrage you. On Lake County Magazine Talk Show with Terry and Pete the Tax Guy, Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Like racing? Try the Checkered Flag Show, hosted by Ace Naylor on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. All ages and divisions in regional and national fields. Joni Lane brings a positive light to you every Monday at 3 p.m. Pasha Space brings an international flair as they discuss ecological, health, and social issues in Haiti with people around the world. End up your week with positive, conscious sounds on Saturday at 9 a.m. with Sister T on the bridge. This show is also simulcast on KMEC 105.1 FM in Ukiah. Our latest show, LCM TV News, is brought to you live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon, and rebroadcast at 6:30 p.m. and noon daily, Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday, featuring national, regional, and local news, weather, and sports. We have it all here for you on your local TV station, LCM TV. Join us online and soon on Roku, giving you access to all the best Lake County has to offer. We are LCMTV.com, your multimedia connection. Tune in for the fun. It's live TV at its best.
Hi, welcome back to A Positive Light. I am Joni Lane, your host, and we were talking about the 3 difficult practices that are in the Buddhist teachings. And a reminder, the Buddhist teachings say do your best to practice the 3 difficult practices, because doing your best is all you can do. They're difficult. That's why they're called the 3 difficult practices. The first is becoming aware and acknowledging your patterns of behavior. Often we create our own stress. And in the 4 Noble Truths we talk about, there is stress. We create stress. Stress is usually attached to our desires. Once we let go of our desires or our attachment to an outcome, we reduce our stress. And walking that path on a daily basis will keep us less and less stressed. The Western culture, we cause stress. Life causes stress all on its own. But in the Western culture, we have media and peer pressure, and there's just so much. We're bombarded with it every day, all day. And we walk around with it, and we share that stress with everyone, and it causes them stress, and they share their stress, and it causes us stress. So how do we get out of that? How do we step away from that? It's really easy to get caught up in drama. I know that sometimes people love to gossip. I have a juicy piece of information about so-and-so. And, it's kind of fun to get caught up in that, but it's also very hurtful and very damaging. And it's not positive. You can walk out of a conversation with someone and it's based on gossip, and you don't really feel that good about yourself or the things you might be saying about someone. That's just an example of some of the negative energy that Western culture really fixates on. And when you're fixated on something, when you continue to cycle it through in your brain over and over and over again, that's a sign of addiction. And if you look up addiction and the definition of addiction, it's simply cyclical thinking that's not healthy. Addiction is usually associated with negatives. I guess we could be addicted to happy things, but addiction is usually too much of anything. So if we're caught up in our patterns of behavior and they're not causing happiness, if they're causing stress and tension and unhappiness, then we have a choice. We can either choose to stay there and continue that behavior because it's what we know, or we can choose to take steps to change our behavior. I do not want you to change who you are. I think that we are all born beautiful, perfect people. But life happens, and the way we react to it is usually led into a direction of not being the healthiest and the happiest. So the first difficult practice is acknowledging our behavior. Stepping back and looking at it, acknowledging our behavior. The second difficult practice is to do something different. It's not comfortable to do something we're not used to doing, so it's difficult. The third difficult practice is a little easier, but not a whole lot. It's living your life in that way. Living your life with the changes and the choices that you're making to have fresh behavior. And Pema Chodron calls it fresh behavior, and I think it's a wonderful term because it's actually choosing to be and act. I shouldn't say be, it's choosing to act differently than we normally automatically would. So you're actually choosing fresh behavior, positive behavior, behavior that causes happiness and releases stress and tension. Pema Chodron also brought up in one of her last lectures that I listened to a very important point that I thought was interesting. All over the world, the Dalai Lama will, whenever you've gone to anything with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he'll say, one of the things we all have in common all over the world is that everyone wants to be happy. And Pema brought up the fact that not necessarily in Western culture, which is really kind of funny because I've actually known people to say, I don't know if I'm comfortable with this changing thing. And it's almost like we stubbornly hold on to what we know, even if it's not making us happy. We're very entitled in this country. We feel that the way we act and the things we say are okay no matter what. But we still want happiness, and we still don't want to have stress and tension. If what we say causes our lives to be stressful and unhappy, then we need to change the way we act or react. It's pretty simple. And I think part of that is taking responsibility for our behavior. Instead of finding other people to blame or excuses to act the way we do when we're not acting nice, we can look at what's causing the stress. Usually it's the way we're thinking or the way we're speaking. We can't control other people. We can control a situation to a certain degree. We can look at a situation and say, you know what, this is a really stressful tension situation going on right now. What do I want to do to disperse this? What can I say or do that would change change the tension in the air right now? And so we're consciously choosing to take a lighter view or a lighter statement, make a lighter statement, to kind of disperse the tension a little bit. I think we've all done that. I think we've all been in situations where we've decided, okay, you know what, it's getting a little tense around here. I'm going to make a joke, or I'm going to point out that it's not that big a deal. Lighten it up a little bit. We take ourselves a little too seriously. But if you're responding to people in a way that you're getting caught up in the tension and you're adding to it, and the anger starts and the frustration starts and you're adding to stress and tension in your life, now you're carrying that. And often you can feel that in your chest tightening up or your stomach tightening up. Your shoulders start to go up around your ears, and you think, oh yeah, if I just put my shoulders down and breathe. Suddenly, what seemed so important a second ago isn't quite as important. You're not caught up in that tension. So, I think that's all part of stepping back and acknowledging behavior. You may want to, at the end of the day, just sit quietly for a few minutes and just kind of look back on your day and see where you might have gotten caught up in the tension. Maybe there was some conversation going on and it was a negative conversation, but you got caught up in it, which is really easy to have happen. And we're human. Sometimes the drama is a nice change, but when it starts getting to be really negative and we start feeling it in our body, we notice that it's not so great and the tension is there. But just by looking at the end of the day, looking back and taking little notes on, okay, I did get involved here, or, oh wow, I remember I said this, I didn't feel good about it, or I'm really proud of myself because I didn't react to that, I stepped away from it, took a couple breaths, didn't get involved, and I feel better. Or someone came up to me and was really rude to me today, and I didn't like it, but instead of defending myself, I just said, wow, I hope you have a better day. Is there anything I can do to help? Sometimes saying that people will go, oh wow, somebody cares. No, I'm okay. And then they check the way they're acting and see a new snowball effect, a positive snowball effect happens. Looking at our behavior is so important to our happiness. We can only control ourselves, and we can only control the things that come out of our mouths. And sometimes not the best things come out of our mouths, so we can go back and apologize. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm sorry. And I think we should be sorry if we've caused ourselves tension. We are beautiful, loving people, and we want to be beautiful, loving people. I noticed also that sometimes when I say that, I've had people say, I have a hard time being open and loving because I'm afraid that that's a sign of weakness, and I'm afraid that people will take advantage of that. I mean, let's look at this for a second. What could happen? If you're nice to someone, they're not nice to you, but you're reacting in a very loving way back to them, you can do that and walk away. You're not asking them to follow you. You're not asking them to do anything. You're simply forgiving them for being a human and having a hard day. That's not really opening yourself up to being a weak person. It's actually opening yourself up to letting your strength out. And it takes a lot more strength to give loving energy to a difficult person than it does to fire back at them. Because firing back at them is our automatic response most of the time. That's our go-to place. That's where we're comfortable. And it's not always the best. It adds to the tension. So I think you understand what I'm getting at, and I think you understand what I'm saying. But it's not that easy to make a life of living in a way of checking yourself and changing your behavior. I will say that once you start doing it, you'll be surprised at how quickly it becomes comfortable. You'll be surprised at some of the reactions you get won't be the reactions you want, and you'll get disappointed in that, but you need to let that go because that's attachment to desire. And when something doesn't happen that we want happen, it kind of bugs us, but we got to let it go because it's not our problem. When someone acts the way they do and we don't like it, I feel bad for them that they're having a hard day. And I try not to get involved with it, unless of course they need my help. Then I'll be happy to help them. It's funny in the Western culture how we're so afraid of everything, and we let fear run us. And so we close off and we get defensive and we cause stress. I'm not saying go out there and be Mother Teresa. I'm not saying go out there and open yourself up to people, to perfect strangers you don't know. It's not safe. We live in a very scary world, which is half of the problem of our tension and our stress. But I'm saying realistically look at the world and realistically look at the way you react to it. And realistically look at what do you say or do that causes unhappiness for you. Sometimes you can ask a friend to help you out. I mean, if we get caught up in our behavior and we don't notice it because we're really caught up in our habits and our patterns and we don't even notice we're doing it, we can have a friend say, hey, you're doing it again. And you could stop and go, okay, thanks. What do I need to do differently? Do I need to do anything differently? Or can I just acknowledge that I didn't like that behavior and move on? It's hard to do without some kind of judgment around it. But I want to stress, I don't want you to judge yourself. I want you to observe your behavior and then consciously make a choice to step into a more positive behavior. Those can become new habits. And when those become automatic, the more negative behavior starts to go away. They're replaced with positive habits that are causing you happiness instead of unhappiness. So, looking at your triggers and what hooks us into that old behavior is very important, because we have, who said it? We have a panel installed in us where somebody pushes our buttons and we react. We don't need to do that. We don't need to react. Somebody pushes a button, you feel it, you feel your anger rise right away. But you don't need to say the immediate response that you always say. You can take a breath and step back and try on a new behavior. Sometimes I will ask people in meditation to look at their day and think of a situation that may come up during the day where they may want to look at different behavior. What else could I have done? Maybe I could have done this. This is where mindfulness meditation comes in really handy. And this is where the Zen practitioners say meditation is this will answer a lot of those questions. So in meditation, you can quiet your mind. You can do a quick scan of your body, see where you're holding your tension, see what, maybe it originated from a place that you can identify. Maybe you had a rough day at work, the boss got mad at you, he's acting irrational, the expectations are too much, you can't live up to it. You know, before you know it, your shoulders are going up and up and up. And then you go home and you get into some meditation and you look at that and you think, you know what? I'm one person. I can only do so much. I know I did the best I could do today. My boss has a problem. Maybe you can talk to him about it. Maybe you can explain your limitations. Maybe you can't. But maybe you need to not emotionally get involved with it. For the moment, you can just look at it. And then maybe next time when that happens, if it happens, you can come back and say something that will dissipate the situation. Maybe you can say something like, you know what, you're right. And I wish I could get that done right now, but I can't because I'm doing this, and I'll get to that. Sometimes just clarifying what's going on with you to another person who doesn't see what's going on with you is all there is to do. Once it's been clarified, they're like, oh, okay, and then the tension is gone. So rather than getting defensive about a job situation, or you feel like you have too many demands on you that day, maybe, you can say it out loud. You know what, I'm feeling like I have a lot of demands on me right now, and it's making me feel really stressed, so I'm going to take a break. You can do that by yourself. You can do that, and you don't need to feel guilty about it. This culture has such high demands. The Western culture, we are hired to do a job. We're usually overworked and underpaid. People are cutting back and hiring less people, so the workload is bigger. There's really only so much you can do well in the course of a day. And being mindful of how you're doing it and how you're reacting in it and how you're talking to yourself in it. It's all really important to your happiness. Your boss is not responsible for your happiness. And as much as your spouse may love you, they're not responsible for your happiness. You can be honest with them and tell them what you need and then discuss it, and hopefully you can find a way to support each other. But ultimately, you are responsible for your happiness. And if the way you're talking to yourself or other people is causing unhappiness, there's the root of the problem. Through mindfulness meditation, you can identify what it is you may be saying to yourself that's not helping. What it is you may be saying to others that's causing tension or adding to the tension. Once you identify it, you can choose to do different things. Now, a lot of times people go, well, I don't know what to do. I know I always act a certain way. I know I always do one thing. When somebody pushes this button, this is how I react. But how do I change that? Where does that come from? How do I find that inside of myself? And those are really good questions because all we know is what we habitually do. But through meditation and identifying what it is that you do, you can look at what's the opposite of that. Is the opposite of that something that would be helpful? Sometimes it wouldn't be, but it's something to look at. Maybe there's a middle ground in between. Maybe there's no response is the right response. So through meditation you can identify and observe and not have judgment, but just kind of look at it and maybe put thoughts up on a shelf and think, you know what, I'm going to look at that for a while because that's a biggie with me. I know that I have buttons that are immediate triggers. Those are biggies for me. And those are the ones I need to put up on the shelf and look at because those are the ones I have the biggest problem with. They cause me unhappiness. A lot of people think that, wow, you must be so peaceful and calm because you've been doing meditation for so long and you've had so many teachers. And I am a lot calmer than I used to be because of meditation. And I have had a lot of teachers. But I'm still working on myself and I'm human. I have my moods and I have my days where some things are triggered easier on some days than others. I'm still looking at them and I'm still trying on different behaviors. I do have new habits now that are making me happier than my old habits were. I have new habitual patterns in my behavior that I've consciously chosen to try on and work with. Some of them I keep, some of them I don't. Some of them work one day and they don't work the next. But I think if you look at treating yourself in a loving way, treating others in a loving, compassionate way, allowing yourself to be human and allowing others to be human. I think forgiveness plays a big part in this. Forgiving yourself for some of the temper tantrums that you have. Allowing yourself to try on new behaviors. Allowing yourself to make mistakes when you try on those new behaviors. You'll learn a lot about what works and what doesn't work. About what feels good and what doesn't feel good. You'll learn a lot about, you know what, I really want to stick with this because this feels good. And even if it's 5 minutes a day of meditation, just to observe, that's a really big step in helping yourself be a happier person. If you don't come to my meditation classes, find another meditation center around you. There are meditation centers all over the country, all over the world. So I know there's one near you. And if for some reason you can't find one, there's books, there's the internet, there's all kinds of teachers that can help give you different ideas and different viewpoints on different things to try. I've given you some from 3 different teachers here today, plus some of my own from my own experiments. And I think that they're very powerful. And I think that you can find a lot of happiness by observing your behavior and making conscious choices to choose fresh behavior. So that's what we're going to talk about within the next few weeks is going over choices. How can we get there? What are the choices? How can we identify things? How can we as humans throughout our day, gently look at things, identify them, and make gentle changes. I'm not saying do anything radical. I'm saying to do some gentle changes. It's kind of like trying on new clothes. If you drop your patterns of behavior that you're used to, you may feel like you have no ground under your feet. You may feel like you've just jumped into a really uncomfortable place. But give it a few seconds and stand there and see if you can get comfortable with it. Stand there and see if this is something you can take with you. Maybe even just a piece of it. If you find yourself catching yourself in your habitual patterns of behavior that aren't healthy, just one time in the day, even for a moment in the day, you've realized, oh wow, I did that. I acted the way I always acted and I didn't want to. That's a really big deal. You should make a note of that, because that's huge when you recognize it, even if you don't change it. If you recognize it, it's a really big step in the right direction to causing yourself to be happy instead of causing yourself to be stressed. So I hope I helped you a little bit today. And next week I'm going to be coming on here with a few more suggestions, as I said, on some of the things you might want to do to help yourself feel better. But just for today, and just for this week, maybe the exercise for this week would be, this week I am going to consciously try to take note of old patterns of behavior that are not causing happiness. Just make a note of it. Every day when you get up, okay, today I'm going to try to be conscious of that. No judgment. Just looking at it. And that's a really big step. So for the week, let's try to do that. Thank you for joining me today. And thank you, LCM TV, for having us. Thank you, Mark, for being the engineer for today. You're always so wonderful, and I love you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sam, for the music, Sam Houston. And please be careful with your feelings. Be good to yourself. Give yourself a break, and just observe your behavior with no judgment. And be nice to yourself. So until next week at 3 o'clock, take care, and I'll see you then.